Welcome to the All About You podcast. And my guest today is Lyn, and we are covering something very interesting. We are going into the world of decluttering. Lyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sheila. Lovely to be with you today.
Now, Lyn, you are a health coach, but one of the areas that you do help people with is with decluttering. Can we just start with explaining and trying to pick apart what do we mean by decluttering? What it is, what it isn't?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a very brief and simple explanation. It's basically removing the things from our space in order to make it a more pleasant, more useful, and more productive space. Really, that's what it is. But it's not as easy as it sounds, as we know. And a lot of people really battle with it. And we all deal with that sort of thing differently as well. And one of the big things is that people don't realize is that decluttering or clutter actually comes with responsibility. You've got to store it, keep it clean, it's taking up space, etc. So it actually has responsibility in our lives. And yeah, that takes energy.
I think it's really interesting. I was reading a fact the other day that said one of the fastest growing businesses around the world is self-storage. And in this article, it basically said our cupboards are full, our drawers are full, our garages, cupboard under the stairs, everything is full. We are then branching out and hiring these self-storage places, which can start from a few meters up to a massive warehouse. In theory, we're just temporarily going to put stuff in there, and we will sort it all out, and then we won't need this storage anymore. Which sounds great, but in reality, you hire the storage unit, you spend the weekend filling it up with all your stuff, and then you continue for the next 6 years to pay for that storage, or you just go a bigger storage as you get more stuff. That's scary.
It is scary. It's crazy. And I've got this wonderful cartoon of a dear old gentleman leaning on his Zimmer frame with his son next to him in front of his garage that is packed and everything is just piling out of this garage. And he says, son, one day all of this will be yours. And that's the thing. We all collect all this stuff, which, as I said, has responsibility, and we don't ever use it. And it's such a waste because it impacts us on an emotional, physical, mental level. And it's a form of stress because actually that's what clutter does. It increases our stress hormone, which is your cortisol hormone. And the UCLA University did a study in 2021 where they found a link between high density of household items and elevated cortisol levels. So clutter actually makes us feel stressed, makes us feel overwhelmed, uncertain, depressed, and that obviously affects our mood. But one of the other things you might relate to as well is it's like this little voice on your shoulder, and it keeps telling your brain that you've actually got work to do. You're not finished yet. You need to clean up. And sometimes it's really hard to relax mentally and physically in a cluttered space. So it causes anxiety because we also never know how much work it's actually going to take to clear all this stuff up. So it really isn't good, and it's such a good thing to basically get rid of it. And then some people accumulate this clutter because they think they might need it one day. And we can all relate to that, I think. And then others just feel that they struggle to make a decision of what to do with it. So they'll just leave it. Yeah, you have to ask yourself, why are you holding on to this? Sometimes it can be because you've been disappointed or you've got unmet expectations and you're holding on to this stuff, which actually is never really going to solve those things. And you need to decide, is it actually time to let the stuff go?
I mean, there are so many points to unpack in what you have just said, Lyn. We've all moved house probably several times, and we can all relate the same story. We have probably got a box that has maybe moved house 2 or 3 times, and it's just probably got kitchen or books or stationery written on it. We have got no idea what's in that box, and we've moved that round 2 or 3 times.
at a cost and taking up space. I'll tell you about my little experience. We left South Africa about 3 years ago, and I said to my husband, that's it, we're getting rid of everything. And my friends all said to me, you'll never do that. And I said, watch me, I will. So what we left with was one suitcase of clothing each and one backpack with a laptop in it each, and that's it. Everything else was gone. It is such a liberating feeling. And as we've mentioned, we're in Spain. They do have furniture there. They do have kitchen stuff. We don't have to take it all with. And often you find people will take their furniture and it doesn't fit into the new size or style of the houses. And, I've got friends who cut a bed in half because they couldn't get it up the stairs. And all these silly things that we just hold on to. It's if you sit back and look at it, it's crazy.
I think one of the things I find really interesting is when we talk about decluttering, a lot of people will rush out to a shop and buy boxes and bins, containers, and then think, right, okay, I'm going to need all these different containers to declutter. Surely it makes sense to sort out the clutter, donate, sell, discard what you don't want. And then in theory, all those things, and once you've gone through that decluttering process, which is not easy by any stretch of imagination, see what you have left, and then, okay, maybe I need a container. What kind of container? Should it be opaque? Should it be clear? On wheels? Is it going to go under the bed? Should it have a lid? Is it child friendly? But so many people rush out and spend an absolute fortune. And then, okay, I filled this bin. I cannot lift it. It's too big to go underneath the bed, which was my original plan. I mean, you're sitting there smiling and nodding.
Yes. Absolutely, yes. And just now we'll talk about how to declutter. So yeah, and it's, for me, it's funny. It's just bizarre that this is human behavior. But you have to look at the life cycle, I suppose, as well. As you start off your life with nothing and you build everything up, and then you can't let go, And your kids, if you've got kids, they leave home, they leave all their stuff. You want to give them all your stuff, and you actually need to sit down and ask them if they want any of that stuff, if you do have kids. But Sheila, one of the things I find absolutely fascinating by doing this is looking at decluttering personalities. And there's a company called Tallboy that worked in partnership with a lady called Suzanne Raynon, and they've come up with these 5 personalities. So I'm going to give you the names of the personalities, and then I'll give you a brief description and a little tip, if that is you, how you can start trying to look at decluttering in a different way. So you've got your sentimentalist, you've got your materialist, you've got your evader, your high achiever, and your habit keeper. So if we look at the sentimentalist, they hold on to any and every object because they feel that they're throwing away love, especially if the objects are something that somebody they love gave them, whether the person is still here or not. And they define themselves by their family, by their relationship or their friends. And they'll have every picture their kid ever brought home from school, every photograph, every ticket from a meaningful event, and endless trinkets and mementos, etc., etc. It's very hard for them to get rid of any of this stuff. And they feel incredibly guilty because they're throwing away the love. So there is a way of doing it, and often it's best if they do get help, and help can be from a friend, a family member, a coach. But what they need to do is go and get a really beautiful box and create a treasure box for themselves and put the really special items into it that they honestly want to keep, that they actually look at and go through, and then keep that, and then getting rid of the stuff that they actually really don't need. It'll make that process a little bit easier. And they've always got the treasure box to go back to, and it's just the special items. So that's a way for them to start off. It's a process, but yeah. Then we look at our materialists. As these people, their possessions are everything, and it gives them financial security. But they need to ask themselves whether they would pay the same to replace the identical item now in order to make space. So a good way to do this is to ask them to describe their dream home. And as we know, dream homes don't actually come with clutter. And then you have to say to them, if you were going to move into your dream home, what in your current home would you actually take with you? And then that helps them change perspective and understand that they don't actually have to hold on to all this stuff. So I think, yeah, that makes sense too. Then we've got the evaders. Now, they often keep postponing decluttering, and they'll let unwanted items gradually take over their homes. But the clutter can be caused by their kids, by their partners, by circumstance, and often it's not even their own fault. But they hate living in this mess, but they're so resigned to seeing it that they actually totally absolve themselves of the responsibility, and they kind of become part of the problem eventually. And so a tip for them is to look at what they can control in their space and to deal with that first and help them change their thinking. And then what often happens is that the other members of the family who've been helping them create all this mess, it's a domino effect, and they see the difference it makes when things are cleared up. It doesn't work for everybody, but it is a way of doing it. And then we've got the high achievers. So these guys travel light and they think nothing of getting rid of items they no longer use. But their home and their lifestyle has to fit in with their status and their image of success at the moment. And that changes as they go through life. So why do they let clutter pile up? So often they cling to the evidence of the past, of wins, of framed photographs, of awards that they got, of expensive business suits, branded items, that sort of thing. And these, often along with boxes of legal paperwork, if they're fighting some form of battle or other for justice, are really a daily reminder of failures. These kind of people are very target-driven because they're high achievers. So they need to set decluttering targets, and then they also want a reward. So they need to decide what they want to declutter, decide on what their reward is going to be. It's an incentive for them, basically. And then our last one is the habit keeper. Being best prepared means you've got to keep everything. These were often babies or boomers who grew up with rations and restrictions, and they learned these things from their parents, and that you've just got to keep everything just in case. And this talks to what you were saying just now. So we've got sheds, garages, attics, full, bursting with dusty, rusty, musty items, which sadly are long since obsolete. And for them, it is an incredibly emotional thing to deal with this, but can also be an absolutely huge relief. So the best way for them to do it is also to get help, to get a family member or a friend or a coach or somebody that can help them that they trust, work through all this stuff and help them change, what they're holding on to.
Lyn, that is just phenomenal how you have described these different people, the way they live their lives, why they're keeping all this stuff, and then how you, as a professional, would go, okay, well, this is what you need to look at. Why is this important to you? You make it sound so logical and so simple once you know your personality.
Yes. And who would ever have thought of that, Another way to look at it as well is you actually have to look at where the clutter is in your home. So an example would be you've got clutter in your living room, and that could actually suggest that you've got blockages in your social life. And you could look at each, yes, isn't that fascinating?
Just said that because you can just see the reaction on my face, as in, we all have a hot spot in our house.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a table, but there is always a hot spot where random stuff ends up. We've all got it. And if somebody says they haven't, I think, yeah, you've probably hidden that away somewhere. Only you know where that hot spot is. That is so interesting.
I thought it is, yes. And then we've also got different types of clutter. So you've got paper clutter, which we all know, digital clutter, all the junk we keep on our phones, the documents from years ago that nobody ever needs, nobody ever wants, etc. Emotional clutter, physical clutter, spiritual clutter. So there's different kinds of clutter, that also impact us. And then there's different reasons as well why people find it hard to declutter. So we've talked about the personality types, and that's a major one. But often it's a security blanket. especially for people who didn't have, when they grew up, who didn't have a lot of stuff for whatever the reason, and they find it particularly challenging. So they begin to view this as a security blanket, and they actually create scenarios in their minds. And these scenarios, the what ifs, become the reason why it's really, really tough for them to let go. And then other people, which we'll all relate to, are just too busy. They're simply too busy, and they don't make the time, and when they do it, they don't actually put in the time and effort to do it properly.
I think it's very interesting what you're saying about often it's a generational thing, because if we have got family members who have lived through, for example, the Second World War, they will keep every piece of string, elastic band, they open a gift, they're smoothing out the paper. You open a cupboard and there'll be 5 years worth of washing up liquid, for example. I totally understand that.
Mm-hmm, yes. But sadly, their children learn from them, and it's to be able to stand back and look at that and make a conscious decision on that,
I mean, one thing I wanted to add, Lyn, you said a little while back that, we accumulate stuff and in theory, the children don't want it. I've come across people who've got beautiful tea sets, have got glassware, all these beautiful linens and all this, that and the other. And they're too frightened to use it in case it gets broken. So it's in a cabinet or it's locked away in a cupboard or wrapped in tissue paper in a box. The children, they just want to go to IKEA and get something that's cheap. They don't want to have to spend time looking after and caring for a Waterford crystal. Mm-hmm. So you've got the owner who has got it in a cabinet, too frightened to use it. The kids have we don't want that stuff. We're never going to use it. Mm-hmm. And it will just sit there and it's going to be a problem for the children. And I'm sure the parents think, oh, my children will love this and they'll look after it exactly as I've had it was, their grandmothers or whatever. That's not going to happen. If we're truly going to be honest and realistic, that's never going to happen. So it just stays in the cabinet, in the box, in the drawer, in the cupboard.
Mm-hmm. And it's such a waste because, we, as they say, you've got to live in the moment. And so leaving it in the box, you get no joy out of it whatsoever. So if you're going to have it, then use it, and your children will get their own stuff. You might have one child who's a bit sentimental and wants some of the stuff, and that's fine. But you need to have that conversation with your children instead of just leaving it all for them to clear up. And also, if you have the conversation and they don't want the stuff, one of the big things is you then decide where it goes. You might give it to a friend who's always admired it or donate it to somewhere, but somewhere where you choose. You're not leaving it for other people to decide where your special things should go.
I mean, I must admit, I've heard of a thing called Swedish death cleaning. And for those that haven't heard of this, the idea is you get together with your family, and I'm sort of talking about parents or grandparents, and you literally, as a group, look at all the sentimental things and say, okay, when I'm gone, I would like you to have the earrings, you to have the first edition books, you to have the stamp collection, etc. So literally everybody knows who is going to have what. So there's no arguments for the parent or the grandparent. Right, I know, I wanted my granddaughter to have the earrings, etc. She's happy with that. Okay, I'm happy. I know that's my wish will be carried out. I think that is a genius idea.
Brilliant. And it sorts out a lot of trauma and drama. You know where your stuff's going. They take what they want and they've got it. It's a brilliant idea. It's very, very clever. Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, one thing I did, because I had my mother's jewellery, I had her mother's jewellery, and it was just all kept together. When my mother passed, I thought, okay, am I going to wear any of this? Mm-hmm. And the answer really was no. So I went to a jeweller and I said, okay, this is my problem. I've got all this jewellery. I'm never going to wear it. I would like to have something that I will wear. We did a bit of a deal. He took all of this. I got what I wanted. And I actually chose a really nice pair of earrings, which I wear probably 90% of the time. Instead of having a jewellery box full of bits and pieces, I've got a pair of earrings I absolutely adore, and in my world, they are the family jewellery.
Absolutely. And you get joy out of them and you use them.
Absolutely.
And surely your mom would actually be happy if she realized that that's what, if she knew that's what you'd done with it.
So in my heart, I think my nana and my mum would be so happy. And it's sorted out a big problem, which a lot of people will have.
Yes, you do. Absolutely agree with you. Yes.
Let's imagine someone is saying, I've got this spare bedroom. It is just full of stuff. And we have got the suitcases for the holiday. We go on once a year. We've got kids' clothes they've grown out of. We've got a random thing we bought on eBay that wasn't quite what we wanted. But behind all that, we're really not sure, because we basically just throw it in and shut the door and we'll sort it out another day. How do we even think about attacking that before we actually enter the room? What's the first thing we've got to get straight in our minds before we go into that room?
So first of all, we have to take time and plan to declutter. You're not going to go, I'm going to clean that whole room on Sunday afternoon, because it's not going to happen. So you need to have a look at what you want to declutter and set time aside specifically. But you also need to set clear and realistic goals for what you want to do. So even if it's a case of pulling one box out the room and sorting it out, or doing one shelf or one whatever, just start, because then actually you're not procrastinating anymore, you're actually decluttering. And you've got to go through each and every item and really consider what you want to do with it. Do not reshuffle at all. So don't go, I'll decide later, because that's part of cluttering. Oh, I'll decide later. No, you won't. Pick it up and decide now. And I'll tell you how to do that now. One of the things to do that is quite positive is to decide what you want to keep rather than what you want to get rid of. So it's subtle, but it's different. Oh, I like that. I want to keep that. That's useful. And then also ask yourself, do you love it? Does it fit? Does it make me feel good? Do I need it? And when last did I actually use it? And the best way to declutter is to create 4 piles. You mentioned them earlier on. So things you want to keep, things you want to donate, things you want to sell, and then things you want to throw away. And start small. And especially your donate column, always think about the people that you're going to give it to that are actually going to benefit from it. And another nice thing to do is to actually try and picture your after. What is this room going to look like when it doesn't have all the stuff in it? When I can actually invite friends around to stay over because I've got a spare room, or do a craft in there, or whatever works for you. Try and envisage that, because then it's something you're working towards. And to be honest, planning is the key to making this happen, and also being accountable. So again, as I say, to a friend, to a family member, to a coach, whatever works for you, just be accountable to somebody, because otherwise you're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. That's why it hasn't happened, because if you say you're going to do it on Sunday and you don't, well, who cares? It doesn't make a difference in your life or anybody else's. You just didn't do it, so it doesn't matter. So that's where accountability comes in and actually makes the difference. And I've definitely found that with my clients as well. That's the critical bit: planning and having accountability.
I think it's so true what you say, because we often will say, right, Sunday afternoon, I'm going to attack the garage. I mean, straight away, how much realistically do you think you can organise in a garage on a Sunday afternoon? Exactly. And decluttering, it's a very physical activity. You're going to get dirty. You're going to get hot. You're going to have brain overload with all these decisions. Mm-hmm. But I love the way you said, the first thing is, do I love it? That is a really big question.
Does it make me feel good? Am I benefiting from this? Or is it just a burden, another thing on my to-do list, another thing to take care of or look at?
Okay, Sunday afternoon, I'm going to attack the garage. Well, straight away, you are just heading down a very slippery path. You're going to get frustrated. You're not going to get the whole garage done, and you'll end up with stuff all over the drive that you don't know what to do, piles that you're not sure, are they the donate, the keep, and you're just going to go, I don't know, just everyone come and just shove it in the garage, shut the garage door, and I'm going to go and have a large gin and tonic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's overwhelming, and we don't have to do that to ourselves. So I'm going to give you a little example. I'm going to take a bathroom. And the reason I'm going to take a bathroom as my example is because we're less emotionally attached to the things in our bathroom. So it'll just give a little example. So bathrooms collect all sorts of fun things, that often shouldn't even be in there. But because we're not as emotionally attached, it's sometimes, depending on your house and whatever, it's a good place to start. So look at things like your body products. You've got soaps, you've got lotions, you've got potions, you've got bath fizzy things, you've got sunscreen. And remember, things like sunscreen actually have an expiry date. So you need to just check that those are still okay to use. Go through all of these things, put them into those different piles, throw the empty bottles into recycling if you can, plastic recycling. If you've 3/4 used something and just left it, get rid of it. Put the things aside you want to keep. Pack them in a nice clean drawer or a nice clean shelf, whatever, and that you can easily access them. And then don't go and buy new stuff until you've basically used up the other stuff. You don't need 6 bottles of cleaning detergent that you mentioned earlier. Look at your things like your towels, your face cloths, your bath mats. Are they just had it? Are they worn and old and revolting? Could you donate them to an animal shelter or whatever, anything? Go and find somebody to donate them to. Use them as rags, reuse them, recycle them, whatever. And, how many do you really need? How often do we get through all these towels that we've got in our cupboards? Then things like makeup. Generally, makeup lasts 6 to 12 months maximum. So have a look. You might have seen it on special. You might have been given it as a gift. It could be anything. It could have been a free sample or whatever. If you haven't used it and it hasn't expired, give it to a teenager. They'd love it. Take stuff out of your space and actually makes them very happy because they're saving a little bit of money. The other thing is to look at things like your hair brushes. We've got brushes, we've got clips, we've got ribbons, you've got hair dryers, those tongs from years ago that you never use or never did use, things you stick on the end of a hairdryer that you've never used that are supposed to give your hair volume, etc., etc. You know what I mean? From all those fashions that are long gone. Do they even work? If you plug the thing in, does it even switch on? Get rid of the things you don't need. Create a nice, clean environment for your bathroom. A lot of people store medication and first aid items in their bathrooms. So go through your medication. Often the doctor will change your medication. You've got half a box left. You can't give it to anybody. Get rid of it. You don't need it. Have a look at the expiry dates on medication, on ointments, on anything like that. I mean, even dressings. If you've broken open a dressing, it's not sterile anymore. Pitch it. You can't keep that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's kind of some of the things that you can do, to get rid of the decluttering. And what can be fun is if you take a before and after photograph for yourself of the room, because you'll just feel so good.
I love that because I heard this the other day. Just go around your house with your mobile phone and take photographs from different angles, because in a photograph, it will show you things that you do not see. Mm-hmm. And when you said that, I thought, yeah, that makes sense, because we think it's all smart and tidy, but somebody else will come in and they'll zoom straight on that plant that needed a bit of TLC. But because we see that poor plant every day, we don't realise.
So true, so true. So I find that quite helpful, that you can actually do a before and after photograph. You'll be shocked sometimes.
There's one thing I have to say I have stopped doing. When you go and stay in a hotel and you have these lovely like mini body lotion and bath gel and shower, for years and years and years, the last thing I do when I have my final check, oh yes, let's take the free toiletries. And I had such a collection, which was great to a certain point. You start wading through, then you think, okay, well, actually, I stayed in this hotel 3 years ago. Now my golden rule is I decant my full-size products into like mini bottles. I just went and bought a pack in like Primark, like €6, little mini tubes and bottles. Decant my full-size stuff into that, just enough for the weekend, and I never, ever bring home any of the little bathroom goodies. And, oh, my God, that has made a huge difference.
Absolutely. I'm the same. If I take it, it'll because I'm donating it to somebody. I'll give it to somebody else. I'm taking it specifically to give to some underprivileged person or somebody I know who likes them or whatever. But I always decant my own stuff as well. Absolutely the same. I've got a whole little neat and tidy thing of bottles that I refill.
But it's so true. I mean, just looking at, in theory, the smallest room in the house, the bathroom, as you say, so much random stuff appears in the bathroom, and you just think, one of us must have brought it in the bathroom for some reason. I mean, I love that because, the before and after photograph is very satisfying, taking everything off the shelf, giving it a good wipe and a clean and looking at, okay, when did I actually use this sunscreen? Oh, well, if it was last year, it's probably not ready to use this year. And when you can see the before and after, I think that is a genius idea. And that's got to be such a motivation. You're starting in somewhere small. Okay, I've methodically gone through. I don't need to go and buy more storage containers because I've now only got 2 bottles of shampoo as opposed to the 6 I had before that had literally 1 shampoo's worth in the bottom.
Yes. And also depending on the kind of person you are, you might want to say, when I've cleaned out the bathroom, I'm going to reward myself with, a manicure, a pedicure, a new book, or whatever works for you. You can always create a little list of rewards for yourself. And that's also motivating because, I'm sitting in the sun reading this lovely book I've wanted to read because I've earned it. I've done my, my bathroom, my garage, my whatever. And it's also, for some people, that works really well.
And another thing is, though, Lyn, we've often got these little jobs that we've had on our mental to-do list or written down maybe for months, maybe years. And when we actually get round to do them, it might take us 10, 15 minutes. Oh, my God, it can make such a difference. And it's like, why has this been on my list for 6 months? I had something the other day. I'm so sick of seeing this on my list. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it on this day, at this time, half an hour, I think I can crack it. And I did. And I got it done. And I was just so angry with myself that I hadn't done that task like 6 months ago. And I thought, oh, my God, I feel like 10 kilos lighter. And the satisfaction of striking it through on my list was just priceless.
That's the little voice on your shoulder that keeps saying you've got stuff to do, and you never, ever relax because you've got to do it. And you just feel so good when you've done it. You really do. So well done. That's wonderful. Really cool.
So, Lyn, can I just ask you, is there a big difference between clutter for women and clutter for men? Do they look at it differently? Do they have different types of clutter problems?
I think it depends to a degree on the personality type as well, because if you're a sentimentalist, man or woman, you're going to keep the bits and pieces, or the person with the habit keeper. So I think women have more things because we have, especially like the makeup and the clothing and that sort of thing. So we have more things that it's easier to clutter. So I think a lot of it will go around personality and then the space you've got and then just what you can clutter.
It's interesting you brought up about the space because I said to my husband the other day, there was just too much stuff on this unit. I said, I'm going to sort it all out. Here is the stuff that I do not want on the top there. I'm going to either donate it or see if anybody wants it, take a picture, send them a message. Is this any good to you? And he said, but why are you doing that? We've got the space to store it. And I just thought, I'm trying to just make a tidy, pleasing, calming vista, for want of a better word. And that's why I'm decluttering things that are past their sell-by date. And he was, well, let's keep it. We've got the space for it. Any comments on that, Lyn?
Oh, I think it's quite normal. And I think obviously in a relationship, obviously one often wants to keep and one wants to declutter. I think it's also involving them in it, and it's why you want to do that, and what else could you put in that space if you wanted to, or what it would look like if it's just clean and nice and it just lifts the mood in the room, Again, that also talks to all the benefits of decluttering, actually. So yeah, maybe it would be involving him like you did, but explaining to him why you're doing it and what the benefits are of that. They don't, he might not always agree, but his things let him declutter. and if he doesn't, they go in a box that's hidden under somewhere.
I think we've always been in people's homes where they invite you to sit down and you sort of look around and you've got the cat on one chair, you've got a pile of magazines, newspapers, papers on another one, and maybe there's a project on, and you sort of look around and go, do I oust the cat off the chair? Because we don't see our own environment. We almost become blind. And this is why I love the idea of your photographs. But I can understand, particularly for a lot of older people, it's security having their things around them. So they like to have the pile of newspapers. They like to have the project on the sofa. And that's where the cat sits, and, which is fine for them. But then when other people come in, you don't want to embarrass them and sort of saying, well, I'd love to sit down, but, there isn't actually anywhere to sit.
Makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you don't want to sort of address the elephant in the room, but that's how they live their life. But sometimes I think you've got to think about the safety aspect, particularly for elderly people. That pile of papers, and that's where clutter can become incredibly dangerous.
Yes, agree totally. And as you say, especially as we get older and especially in small spaces. And often people don't realize until they fall over something and break something that is a danger. So, yes, and it's very important, and it just gives you space. It gives you more energy, more flexibility. You become more resilient, less overwhelmed. And it's just so important, which gives you time to do other things as well and not always worrying about the stuff that's there. Reduces our stress and just makes us live in a better space. It's very liberating, actually. It really is.
The thing that I really do like is this one in, one out principle. So, for example, if you buy a new pair of jeans, you're buying a new pair of jeans in theory to replace the pair that are worn out. So you bring a new pair in, the old pair goes out as rags or donated or to the dog shelter, whatever. One in, one out, to me makes perfect sense, because we're all guilty of having maybe 3 white shirts that are really very similar. And I'm not talking work shirts if you're in that sort of environment. How many pairs of jeans is enough? I've no idea the answer to that. I mean, I think I've got 4, and I think that is plenty. You read articles and people say, I've got 25 different pairs of jeans. You've got 2 legs. You can wear 1 pair at a time. Quantity of the same thing can often be the road down to clutter.
Yes, absolutely. And that reminds me of people who have gained or lost weight. And they've kept the jeans from 10 years ago when they were X size, whatever, bigger or smaller, doesn't matter. And it's crazy because it's continually there reminding you that you're not happy. And what are you doing about it? And what is the point? Somebody else can use that, and they're not even in fashion anymore. If you are interested in fashion, they probably don't even fit, properly when you do lose weight. So it's a funny thing, humans, that it reminds me of hamsters sometimes, that we just hoard it. Yes, it's very interesting. It really is.
Particularly with clothes, because we're all heading into summer now, so we're dragging out the summer clothes and going, oh my God, I've got a whole new wardrobe. And then we have the reality of trying everything on, which is always a little bit traumatic. So something you love, but maybe it should have enjoyed the summer, but okay, this is its last year for it. It's lost its colour, its elasticity, etc. So we've got the dragging the stuff out, the trying the stuff on, making the decisions. Can it work for another year? Is it too big, too small, with that type of thing? And then it's like, okay, I need to get a new swimsuit or some, summer clothes, etc. So that's a good time to actually go, okay, how much am I getting rid of? What basically do I need to replace? And if I'm going to bring a new thing in, let's get rid of the old one, whether it's donate, sell. And there is so many sort of selling sites now which seem to be very, very successful. Donating seems a lot easier these days. And yeah, you know, women's refuge, animal shelters, schools, there are so many places.
There's so much need. So, and you just feel good because actually, you know, you give and passing it on to somebody who can use it and enjoy it, who may have nothing or, yeah, absolutely agree with you. And it's a wonderful time. So while you're packing away your winter stuff, sort through that now, because some of it isn't going to make next winter, as you say. And while you're taking out your summer stuff, things have changed over winter. Check that before you put it into the cupboard. Take those 4 piles, you know, and decide. And then you start off the whole season with a cupboard that's very efficient, where you can see what you've got. You know what you've still got to go and buy, as you say. And it just makes life so much easier.
Particularly with clothes. If you walk into a clothes shop and the rails are rammed with clothes, you sort of look at it and you think, I can't deal with this. You walk into another shop and there's a few clothes on the rack, there's space between them, or they've got a table, and it's not necessarily a high-end shop, but the way things are displayed, you go, okay, well, I can actually see the dresses, I can see the shirts or the T-shirts on the table. We are very much like in our wardrobe, isn't it? If you open the doors in the morning, and we hear this all the time, the wardrobe is absolutely stuffed to bursting. You've got nothing to wear. We've all been there. Some of us are still in there, and some of us are on our way to that destination. Let's talk about that, Lyn. It can be a cupboard in your kitchen, your wardrobe, a cupboard in your dining room. You know, you open it and it's just like there is so much stuff. What's a good way to attack a cupboard, whether it's books, clothes? Let's talk about that. How would you attack that?
First of all, take a photograph. And then basically, I'm assuming now that you've set time aside to do this. Yes, you've planned it, and you're going to have those four piles. Sit down and take one item out, the first item, and have a look at it and decide, do I need to keep this? If so, fine. And when I keep it, where is it going to go? Is it going to go back in this cupboard or not? Or am I going to move it to somewhere else more? You know, you might have books shoved in the cupboard, but you might have a bookshelf somewhere else. That would be more relevant. So go through the item, have a look at it. You know, do I love it? Does it make me feel good? Could somebody else use it? When last did I even open this book? Photographs. When last did you even look at them? You know, things like that. And then put them into those 4 piles and just keep asking yourself the same questions. You know, don't reshuffle it. Decide immediately. This is what I'm going to do with it. This is who I'm going to give it to, or I want to keep it, or whatever it is. And also think about your personality, the type of personality, and how you can look at that book. So, you know, if you're a sentimentalist, well, do I really need this book? Is it something I'd want to put into that beautiful treasure box or not? So think of those things related to that. Am I keeping this book just because it's a habit? You know, because I was always told to keep books. I've always kept books. Would it be better to take it to a secondhand bookstore or to donate it to a charity or something? So just take one item out at a time, make a decision about it, and put it into the pile. You know, your keep pile, you obviously have to take everything else out the cupboard before you can put it back, if it's going back in there. And then take the next item out and the next item. And just take your time to do it properly, because you also don't want to do a half-baked job and have to go back and do it. That's not very motivating, you know, and not. And as I had a client a while ago said, whenever I'd clean out something like that, I want to go and tell everybody to come and look at my cupboard and see what I've done, you know, which is true.
Just made a note about the treasure box. I've been actually making notes as we've been going through this conversation, Liz. This treasure box, I mean, the fact that it's called a treasure box floats my boat straight away. And I'm just thinking in my mind, I've got a lovely box. It's quite a big box with a nice lid, a magnetic lid. That is going to be my treasure box with birthday cards from my parents that are no longer with me, maybe certificates of things I've done. But a treasure box, I mean, that is just brilliant. You know, it's the ticket from a concert, it's a piece of fabric from maybe something that you love to wear but was past its sale date. Snip a little bit of the fabric. You're always going to have the memory, but treasure box, I think that is just genius, Lyn. Genius.
Good. Pleased you like it. And it works. It does. And, you know, whenever you feel like going to open it and go and play through it, fiddle through it, look at it, do whatever, it's there. And you know it's there, which is nice. And it doesn't have to take up a lot of space. And you can add to it as you go. And sometimes you might even clear some of it out and go, oh, actually, I don't really need this one anymore. I've got a different memory or whatever. So it's a lovely thing to have. It's also, if you know somebody who's struggling with stuff, it's actually a lovely gift to go and buy them a beautiful box and explain to them how to use it. It's also nice.
Well, I think you've solved my Christmas present dilemma. All of my friends are going to get an individually chosen treasure box. And I fill that with a few little treats for Christmas, and then afterwards they've got that treasure box. Oh my God, that is such a brilliant idea. And you find out what their favourite colour is, or do they like cats, or their favourite flower, and find something.
It's lovely. It's a lovely thing to have. I had one before we left, and I loved it. It was a gift to me actually as well.
What I love about this conversation, Lyn, is we are talking about decluttering, but you've now solved a Christmas present problem for my friends. And I think that gift idea is just wonderful. It's something so special because you're going to pick the box particularly for them.
Yes.
And, you know, fill it with a few treats. I mean, I would be over the moon if somebody did that for me. I've been given a treasure box to fill with my treasures.
I'm pleased you like it. Good.
Come from talking about decluttering.
Yes.
So, Lyn, what have we not talked about? Is there anything you want to bring up?
I think the other thing would be to make sure that you break that clutter cycle. So clearing everything out doesn't mean you can go and start again. So you have to have an ongoing awareness of your decluttering and create a positive decluttering habit. So when you bring stuff into your home, whether it's something you bought, whether it was given to you free, whether it's a gift, anything, have a look at it and decide whether you actually want to keep it or not, and continually declutter. You know, have a little box somewhere where the things that for donations can go. The things that you need to throw away, throw them away. But just keep looking. Often people will use like a holiday. Just before a holiday, you can do that. Or any of the seasonal changes. We've all heard of spring cleaning. So, you know, use those times and try and get into that habit so that you don't ever have to go and do a huge, big clutter. And you basically manage, you know, what you do and what you don't keep. So I think that would be my one thing. And then just one parting thing is just to remember that clutter is nothing more than postponed decisions, because you have to decide at some stage what you're doing with the stuff.
Wise words from you, Lyn. If people have listened to this podcast, and I should imagine a lot of people are like, right, I'm going to go and get the black bin sacks, I'm going to go and raid the container store, and I'm going to blitz this weekend the garage, the bathroom, the kids' room, the garden, under the bed, the kitchen cupboards, and including the ones I can't reach. No. Do all the planning in your head. Maybe sit down with a cup of coffee, a notebook and a pen, and just go around the house, take a load of photographs, pick a small area, one cupboard, one drawer, one shelf under the sink in the bathroom. Start small. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Definitely.
Lyn, how can people get in touch with you?
Sheila, I've got a website and an email. And people are welcome to contact me on that, and I'd be happy to chat to them. And what I offer all people who want to talk to me is I offer them a 30-minute free consultation to, you know, just to understand what they want and understand how I work and if I can help them, which most of them I can, obviously. And then we take it from there. So yes, happy to help anybody, because it's wonderful to see the difference that it's made to people who, you know, who've just left this. It's just been hanging around them. And then when they do this, and they find that it's actually not quite as hard as everybody thinks once you get started. It's like just taking that small first step and eating the elephant one bite at a time. I don't really want to eat an elephant, but hey, we all know what that means.
So, Lyn, I'll put all your contact details with the podcast. Can I just say what a fascinating conversation this has been? I love a bit of decluttering, but I love the different decluttering personalities. Sit down with a notepad and a pen and a coffee and do a bit of planning. Don't just rush out and start pulling everything out that cupboard underneath the sink. Just take it easy. Make the time to do it. When are you going to do it? The day? How much time can you allow to it? Baby steps.
Very important. And then enjoy your new space, enjoy your new space, enjoy it, feel what it feels like. How does this make you feel to come home and open your door and know you've cleaned things and it's just lighter and airier and it's a weight off your shoulders, and enjoy that space.
Oh, that is absolutely wonderful advice. Lyn, thank you so much for an absolutely brilliant and fascinating podcast and taking us into the world of decluttering.
It's only a pleasure, Sheila. Thank you for having me, and I really hope that it helps a lot of people.
Lovely. Thanks, Lyn.
Take care.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and please subscribe for future episodes. It is free. If you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's get your story told.